Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now you may remember that a couple of videos ago I purchased a Lenovo Legion T530, I believe it was, gaming PC. Now it's safe to say that this system wasn't without its problems. The first issue we encountered was the fact that it didn't actually want to turn on and stay on. It got itself into a continuous boot loop, and I found that the way to resolve this was actually removing the CPU, reapplying some thermal paste, putting the heatsink back on, and for some reason it seemed to work just fine. It looked as though the thermal paste was fresh enough. It wasn't all dried out, but for whatever reason this seemed to work. Maybe there was some thermal paste on the underneath of the CPU that I didn't notice or whatever, but all I know is that this seemed to fix that initial issue. The next problem, and one that persisted for quite some time up until I chose to make this video, was the fact that the PC would freeze in the middle of playing games. Now I'm thankful that I've actually managed to resolve this issue today, and I want to talk about how I did this, just because it's an issue that may be common and one that the solution might not be immediately obvious to. So the Lenovo Legion PC, it's an okay machine, you know. It's a bit picky when it comes to RAM, as I found out when trying to troubleshoot it the other day. It started beeping whenever I replaced any modules or added another module to it. It's an okay machine. I picked it up for a fair price. It had an i5, or it has an i5 8400 and a GTX 1060, as well as a single stick of DDR4, 8 gigs of the stuff. Now, single sticks of RAM, I wish manufacturers would stop doing this, but there we go. It's a cost-cutting method, and it's going to continue for a long time, I imagine. So, upon opening up the Lenovo Legion once again, I decided to at first take out the GPU and test that separately. Now, you probably saw the 1060 test the other day, where I verified that the GPU pretty much worked fine, and in 2021 the 1060 is still an okay graphics card. It can still handle games at 1080p resolution, and it will do surprisingly well if you don't mind lowering the settings. The other thing I verified was the CPU. Now I've tested this in a couple of other motherboards just to make sure that it's working fine with various RAM, and I can confirm that although it does run a little warm, such as usual I believe with the i5 8400, it does work, and it works absolutely fine. I then thought about the power supply. Now the power supply is a Lenovo PSU. It's one that they do use in these systems, and at first I wasn't sure if it was, but after coming across a couple of other Google images I can confirm that it is indeed used in this Lenovo Legion system, and it wasn't just a cheap replacement. Some of you also noticed this exposed little thing here sneakily sitting on the motherboard. Some of you thought that this may be causing restarts. There was no heatsink on top of this little thing here, but again, someone from Lenovo actually reached out and said yes, this is normal, and after looking up a couple of other images too on Google, yeah, this is how the PC shipped. This little thing here is supposed to be exposed, and it shouldn't cause any problems with the PC itself. So back to the power supply then, and I thought the only option here was to replace it. And as I was taking the PC apart, getting further and further into the depths of this thing, taking a look at the cabling, I started to actually wonder whether or not this was a standard ATX PSU or whether it was a proprietary part, because there were a few connections here and there that made me question this system. But it turns out that instead of using a proprietary PSU, Lenovo just use adapters. For example, there's an adapter to make the hard drives work, because they connect to adapter and then they connect to this weird little thing at the back of the case which is built in. I don't know why they do this and they don't just connect to the hard drives directly, but who knows. There's also an adapter tucked around the back that connects to the DVD drive. I didn't even notice that this thing had a DVD drive the other day until I started to take it apart. It's a laptop DVD drive, so it uses a slightly different connector, but again there is an adapter for that. I took the PSU out and I thought, okay, it's got a weird proprietary connector for the DVD drive on here, and it turns out that again this was an adapter and it simply unplugs. With that then, I decided to remove the PSU, swap it out for another unit that I had, actually from the other pre-built that I tested this week, a Cooler Master 500 watt PSU, hooked everything back up, connected the adapters again, and everything so far seems to be running absolutely fine. I was even able to jump into some games and test them no problem. I've been doing this for a couple of days now, playing games like Red Dead Redemption, Cyberpunk, GTA 5, intensive games using fairly high settings just to ensure that the power supply is or was the issue and that it can now hold up without causing any problems. This also gave me a good chance to actually check out the i5-8400 performance, and as you can see by these gameplay results, in some cases the i5-8400 with its 6 cores and lack of hyper threading does come pretty close to being maxed out, so to speak, under heavy load, and this is something I wasn't quite expecting. However, it is staying within reasonable temperatures, as is the 1060, and it seems as though for now the Lenovo Legion is actually fixed, so I guess it was a power supply issue all along. There's not much else to this video. I said I would troubleshoot the PC and update you, so I thought I'd do that today because this is something that may get overlooked. I initially thought it might be a GPU problem because when it arrived with me, it had been ripped from the PCI Express slot during transit. It probably just wasn't clipped in correctly. I certainly know that there wasn't a screw holding it in place, so it's probably just it probably just got shaken loose during transport or something like that. And I really thought that that was causing the issues. I thought the PCI Express slot was damaged and it was causing all sorts of problems with the system itself. But I'm happy to see that it was just a power supply problem. Aside from that, well, the Lenovo system certainly is an interesting one. It's a fine machine, and I managed to pick this one up secondhand for a reasonable price, but the problem I have with it is that it's so picky with RAM. I tried to upgrade that and it just beeped at me all day long. Considering it ships with a single stick of DDR4 as well, that would have impacted some of today's gameplay results. It's caused some of the stutter that you saw today as well. So yeah, I'd certainly recommend upgrading something like this to 16 gigs of dual channel memory, or just replacing the 8 gigs with two 4 gig sticks, to be honest. Anything is better than a single stick of DDR4. But there we go, one pre-built fixed, one to go. We've got the RGB system as well that I found on eBay that we'll try and improve as well. A bit of news with that one regarding the fans. I made a bit of a silly mistake the other day, but all will be revealed in the next video. As for this one then, well, I hope you've enjoyed it. This has been an updated video on the Lenovo Legion, which now seems to be working fine, but should any other problems arise, then I will update you once again. If you enjoyed this one then, leave a like on it down below. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.